you very much. While we're setting the stage so the guys can do a little Q&A with you, I'm going to bring up Dave Fisher, who actually wrote this program. Dave. Over here.
So Matt, how many of you have heard that? How many of you actually went into Oswald's? Very good, we've got a few of you who've heard this show. I hope you've all been on Buena Vista Street. You know what a great thing that is. And one of the things that we decided to do as part of Buena Vista Street, to give it that richness that Main Street has over at Disneyland, is we decided to do some second floor windows, like the dentist, and also a radio show. This radio show, as you can see here, can only be heard in Oswald, so you gotta be real patient and you gotta go hear it. The second floor windows are actually even harder to hear. Has anybody heard those? We have an optometrist's office, we have a dance studio, and we actually have an art studio. And this thing was a blast. I mean, it was a blast to write it. As you can tell, we did a little takeoff on War of the Worlds with Scary Symphony. We did a little takeoff on Amos and Andy with a little show called Hank and Wally, which is a tribute to Frank and Wally, and after they retired, what they do, the adventures of Hank and Wally. We also have the hits of today, circa 1930. As well as you heard, the broadcast of the FF&P Classical Music Hour. And for those of you who are wondering what FF&P is, it's the Fiddler, Fifer, and Practical Cafe, which is located on Buena Vista Street. But in writing something like this, it just sits there on the page. You have voices in your head, you hear these things, you think it's funny, but then you bring in people like this, who just totally bring it to life. Some of these people, they're like, what if the line is like this? What if the line is like that? And pretty much this thing comes to life. And one of the reasons we wanted to do it here today at D23 is for the exact same reason that I just demonstrated by asking how many of you had heard this. Not many of you have. It's just one of those hidden things we have. So we thought, what better way than to come out here and perform it for you? I'm glad that these people came out to perform it, to show you what it is, what it takes to do this type of thing, and how good they are. I mean, we just had one rehearsal this morning. They came out here and they nailed it. So I don't want to take up all the time here. So what I want to do is I want to bring Brian back up, and he's going to introduce our actors for you and give them the applause they deserve. Brian?
Thank you, Dave. Okay, well, we haven't actually introduced our cast, so I'm going to point them out. At the far end is Tim Blaney. The wonderful Candi Milo sitting next to him. Mr. Bob Joles. The fantastic Philip Proctor. Alan Lulu. And Fred Tatasciore. Well, thank you all. What a huge crowd we got for this, too. I'm really glad you all showed up. I just want to introduce you. Now, you've seen them as a group. Now, you may not know all of the names because voiceover people have a tendency to be hidden, but I want to start by introducing you to Philip Proctor, who's sitting in the middle of our audience, one of the founder and members of the Firesign Theater, which is probably, the Firesign Theater is one of the most amazing comedy groups that's ever existed. It's kind of our Monty Python. So, Phil, can you talk a little bit about Firesign for us?
Oh, sure. Firesign Theater has been around for about 45 years, believe it or not. And we started on local radio, KPFK, listener-supported radio in the Valley. 4 men getting together. We all happened to be born under the sign of fire. I'm a Leo. We had 2 Sagittarians and an Aries in the group, so we named ourselves Fireside Theater. We were on a show that was created and hosted by Peter Bergman, who sadly passed away a couple of years ago. But Peter was the Wizard of Oz, and his show was called Radio Free Oz. And it had a terrific following. It was really the very first counterculture talk show, phone-in talk show. And we used to sit around and assume different characters so that we could put the audience on, and they'd call us up and talk to us. I remember the thing that brought fame to us as the Firesign Theater was we had the Oz Film Festival where we all played different directors and we showed our movies on the radio. And I remember one of the movies was an adult film called Blondie Visits the Dentist. And when that film on the radio, we got calls from angry people saying, how dare you show a dirty movie on the radio? And that's when we knew we were on to something. So to make a long story short, we then went on to make records at Columbia, and we were working in the original radio studios, and we did our first recordings. Our first record was called Waiting for the Electrician, or Someone Like Him, and we were working in Bob Hope's old studio, and a studio that Jack Benny used to broadcast from, and it grew from there. We started getting a great following. Our records were layered, complex, and luckily the FM radio revolution happened around the same time, so people could play a 30-minute recording on the air without any interruption, and that's really what led to our fame. So amazingly, we've continued to turn out stuff for 45 years. If you go to firesidetheater.com, you'll see we're now putting out a bunch of books. We put out a book that has 80 hours of our original radio broadcasts from the early days. It has an MP3 in it. It's just amazing now, the platforms that are available. So that's been a great career, and that led naturally to my doing cartoon voices and commercials, voiceover work, and Disney and Pixar films. And it's just been a wonderful ride, and I'm delighted to be able to share some of the fun with you guys.
I want to talk to you. I was looking at your resume and I saw that you've done, I have Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Toy Story, The Lion King, Hunchback of Notre Dame, Hercules, Bug's Life, Tarzan, Toy Story 2. It seems like there was a point where you were working on every single Disney film. Are there any particular roles that we would know you from any of those films?
Well, you know, I'm the seahorse dad in Finding Nemo. You're a clownfish, say something funny, you know. But I really, the thing that people know me the most for, and I still get requests for autographs for, it was the Rugrats. I played Howard the nerd on the Rugrats for many, many years. Not a Disney project, Classy Shupo. And we got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in front of the Hollywood Toy Store, which is perfect. And I guess that, but you know, every role I do, and I know this is true for all of us up here, the thing that we enjoy most about voiceover work is that we can become so many different people. And there's so many challenges, you know. They show you a drawing of a character and you have to come up with a voice. And that's the fun of it. So I really consider the profession the most joyful part of it, not any one particular role.
Right. Excellent. Thank you. Well, Proctor. So now, three of the people on this group I actually only worked with on this show, and 3 I have worked with prior to this show, and one of them actually is Bob Joles, who's standing in the middle of the room. Now, Bob Joles, I brought a little audio, and there's a video that plays with it to show you one of the things that Bob did, and I hope that this works, because I'm just a clicking fool. Here we go.
Greetings, my friends. This is Salah, bearing with you a few handy tips. Once on board, be sure to place your supplies and loose items in the pouch in front of you. Now, this is very important. For your safety, you must remain seated with your seatbelt fastened. Make sure you keep your hands, arms, feet, and legs inside the transport. Watch your children, and remember, no matter what, do not gaze into the eyes of the idol. Now, Sala wishes you a most wonderful and successful expedition.
Really, applause for writer instruction.
Thank you all very much.
Now, actually, Bob has done a number of things. He's one of the voices that's in Star Tours. He was formerly the captain on the Mark Twain. We scuttled him recently, but he was there for many years. And one of my favorite things that you do is the Bodine Bakery, which I know we all rush to when we get to DCA. If you go in and you see that film at the beginning, it's that little intro film. Bob is one of the ones who goes,
It's a very instinctive.
Yeah. But Bob, you shared with me last time, it bears repeating, the first time that you went in the park and heard yourself done, so to speak.
The first time I went in, and I was in the line for the Indiana Jones ride, and it started playing, and you hear, you know, that voice coming out, and you think it's John because you're looking at Sala running around, and my dear sweet wife is standing there, and she says, "That's my husband."
He's the one who's doing that. That's him.
And people are looking at her slightly skeptically. Sure, lady, sure, yeah. Mildred, let's move away from here quickly. It's so surreal to hear your voice coming out of speakers at a ride or a park that you've been to since you were yay big. And it's one of the greatest things in the world. Every time my brother Gary goes through the ride, he'll point it out to everybody that he's with and anybody that'll listen to him, say, "That's my brother!" So I love working for this company. I love doing the classic voices that I do for Disney character voices.
Including the voice of
Bagheera.
Well, I was going to say bigger.
In Jungle Book 2.
I was actually going to suggest from
Snow
Snow White.
Snow White, I am the voice of Sneezy.
Sneezy. Could you do a Sneezy for us?
I'd be sure to watch out for this.
And plus, on an episode of Monk, he was shot in a barber's chair. That was actually very exciting for me to see. So.
Yes, being shot in a barber chair is lovely. Everyone else has to die on the floor, you're in comfort. That was delightful.
Bob Joles. Sitting next to Bob Joles, actually sitting next to Phil Proctor and next to Fred over here in the middle is Alan Lulu. Alan. Now, Alan, I also haven't worked with you a lot, but I was looking at your resume. You've been on a lot of TV shows that I like. You were on Coach and The New Adventures of Old Christine and Private Practice, Big Time Rush. That's a new one.
I never get to die though.
No,
But sometime I do feel like my career sometimes is, but not.
So tell me a little bit about your voiceover career as it is.
Mostly this is actually the first time I've been able to work with this kind of broad character with a company like this.
Right.
Most of the time it's a lot of commercial copy. I do mostly that. Occasionally some video games, which is a lot of dying. That is dying. Oh yeah. It's a lot of. Can you die a little more aggressively? Sure. And then they want you to die like a little dagger, that kind of thing. And you do that for about 2 hours, and then you get paid and you go home. That's a lot of fun.
Tell us some more about what you're doing. What are you doing right now? Like, what are you doing after now? Now, not today, but what are you doing right now?
Not this afternoon.
Not this afternoon. No.
I'm really fortunate that I've been an on-camera commercial actor a lot. I've done a lot of television, but I love doing commercials. When I was in college, I studied with a fantastic acting teacher named Ann Bogart, who made us do all this experimental, really highbrow stuff, working within grids, and you had to work with very specific parameters. And that all worked for commercials, which I'm sure she thinks is anathema to the kind of art that she liked to do. But you have to work within 30 seconds. You got to get the information out. You have to make it interesting. You have to sell the product. So I've been fortunate enough to appear, my face, not as unfortunate for everybody else, in about 183 commercials over my career. And I've been the spokesman or spokes-character for a bunch of products like, well, no, because they never let me just talk directly to the camera. That's too scary for them. They let me hang off things and go, no. A&W restaurants in Canada, which I've very fortunate enough to do for the last 10 years. IBC Bank, where I'm the spokes bee down in Texas, which I had to dress up in a bee suit and walk around the city. And it's totally awesome to have people go, "You're the bee!" Yes.
Yeah.
So that's what I do a lot of.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, Alan Lulu.
Thank you.
So as I told you, 3 of these people I've worked with before on attractions, and one of them is my delightful Candi Milo, who's sitting over there. Love her. So I just want, now I have to ask, because I know that we all do it, the Luigi's Flying Tires at DCA, have you been on it? Anybody? Yeah, you've been on it? Okay, so you sit in that really long queue line before you get on, and you have to listen to that music. Remember all the Italian songs? Okay, so check this out. Candi Milo. So Candi,
Yes.
I mean, I know that you and I worked on that. We worked on this.
Yes.
And actually, I looked in my files. We worked on Countdown to Extinction together. Do you even know that? I had to
Yes.
actually look you up. So we had met before.
We
This
have
is
met a
not
long
okay.
time. I had a
long-
waist back then. I could bend without making noise. It was a
Okay.
long time ago.
But I have to mention a show that you actually star in. Am I right when I say this? Wait a minute, I'm looking at my own stupid notes, so sorry about. What show do we all know you from, Candi? Animated show.
Dexter's Laboratory?
That's right, bring Dexter
Get
on
that from the
Dexter's
laboratory.
Laboratory, right?
Omelette du fromage. Thank you. Sorry, it was a long time
Dexter's
ago.
Laboratory. And also you were on the New Adventures of Jimmy Neutron. You
Yes,
played.
I played the cool kid Nick Dean. Yo, nerd bomb. Yo. Plus I said that I do a lot of boys' voices. It's crazy. That's why I live alone. It's just one of the reasons. I'm working on it.
So tell us a little bit about your voiceover career up to now.
You know, I like Lulu, because it has to be one word, started in on-camera commercials. And I started as a singer, and I met my very first voiceover agents, those many decades ago, by performing and singing, and they came up and handed me a card that said, "You should be doing cartoon voices," and I thought, "That's so nice, thanks so much. I'm glad you like the singing." And you could hear some comedy in there. Perfect. So I don't know if you guys remember Mervyn's department stores. Remember the crazy open lady? Yeah, that's me. So, yes, I know, yes. So I did like Alan. I don't know if it's because we're the same kind of weird, but I loved making 30-second movies. I did really well in commercials, and I, like him, did lots of campaigns for Pearl Vision and Southern Ford and made hundreds and hundreds of commercials, and then was fortunate enough to be part of that new wave 20 some odd years ago, where I could come into the Hanna-Barbera, Warner Brothers. My very first show was Tiny Toon Adventures, and I played the little bird Sweetie, and I was actually hired by Steven Spielberg, which he said, "You know, you were born to do this," and again I went, "Thanks." Thank you. Thanks so much. Would you like to hear me sing? Only at Disneyland. But I do want you to know that I told Pat and Kathy, that's CESD, and I did Luigi's Tires, that I could now die happy. Because I am a voice in a Disney property.
Well, not only that, we recorded that at Capitol Records, the famous
I
Capitol
have
Records
a
building.
photo of my name.
And her name was on the parking spot.
So it was my Facebook profile forever,
Yeah.
was Candi Milo. It's like, I will never get this again. Because the only way that I could do a recording was to do it for a voiceover. It was like, maybe they were right. back
But you
then.
also said there was a connection. Your mom, you had a connection to because you're Italian.
Yes. So my mom, who is 89, was very excited that not only was I singing in Italian, but singing at the park. But I think the significance of that goes beyond that generation to my daughter's generation, and who's here today. I would like to say that how neat it would be to be my mother's age, God willing, and have her bring her kids and say, "That's your grandmother singing." You know, if the song lasts that long, I'm just saying. Who knows, in 20 years' time, the damn cars might actually fly.
Well, we'll bring you back.
Right, exactly, and I'll be 90. Thank you.
Which brings us to, at the end of the panel, my good friend, Mr. Tim Blaney. Now, Tim and I, this is the first time that Tim and I have worked together, unfortunately, but Tim is a fantastic puppeteer. He works with the Muppets. But there's two things that he does that I'm really thrilled that he's here. I'm thrilled he's here anyway. But one is in Men in Black, he is Frank the Pug. Do you know Frank the Pug from Men in Black? That is Tim. And he's also, oh darn it, where's my, oh there it is. Oh, from Short Circuit. He's number 5. So he's a huge star.
Yeah, dogs and robots.
So Tim, just talk a little. We were talking earlier about how did you become a puppeteer? How did that all come together?
It was complete accident. I mean, there are two kinds of puppeteers basically. The ones that know they're going to be a puppeteer when they're 3 years old, and they just build puppets and make them and everything. And then there's accidental puppeteers who just come at it through acting, and I came at it through art school. I was going to be an artist. And then I got to my junior year and said, well, am I going to be an artist? I don't know. I then looked to find a summer job, and there was this opening at a puppetry studio. Went down there, got hired for the summer, because the man I work for, Tony Urbano, he's a very famous puppeteer. He would find people and say, you know, you can be trained to be a puppeteer. You have it. Some people have it. You can be trained. And he would hire art students and actors and train them. And it turns out I could do pretty good mouth sync. I didn't know that. And so he put me in his shows, and then he got a bunch of commercials. We did Chicken McNuggets. I was the Snuggle Bear for a while, and things like that. So
That's amazing.
completely sort of.
How did Frank the Pug come to you?
Well, Tony, I was working for him, and he was hired by Rick Baker to come in and help coordinate all the puppeteers, because Rick's guys were so busy building all the aliens that he needed, okay, we need to go to set with some of the people, so we brought in Tony, and Tony brought in me, and we auditioned some other puppeteers. And I was a worm guy. I was one of the guys that poured coffee in the spill. And then they said, well, they suggested me for Frank the Pug. And Rick Baker had this idea to put dog teeth and pug makeup on an actor and film that, and then put that on the live dog. And they suggested me to do the voice, and I came in and I did it. And they filmed me. They actually made dog teeth for me. They flew me up to ILM and put dog cheeks on me, filmed me, and then sent me home. And I didn't get a picture of it. So they actually didn't, they used that as reference. The ILM animators actually digitally animated Frank's mouth, and I don't have a picture of it.
So you always get a picture.
So,
Talk about Muppets. How did you get involved with them?
well, they have auditions, and they bring you in, and they train you and see you. And I had been working for Tony Urbano for a while, and they knew of me, and they would bring me in when they have big projects, and they're in LA, and they say, all right, bring in the usual suspects. And you get to be, I think I was Guy Smiley, the news guy, once in the latest Muppet movie.
But you were we were talking earlier, at the 29 D23, you came in with the Muppets. They did a big
Yes, I was
live
on
presentation.
that boat that came rolling in on stage. I got to do Rizzo the Rat. It was a great Muppet. He's just got a great control. You can move everything with your thumb. You can move his head up and down, to the side. That was an honor to be Rizzo.
Oh, fantastic. And voiceover. Talk a little bit about your voiceover life.
Well, I came into it through the puppetry. I got cast as Johnny Five by doing the puppetry on the set, doing the voice, and so and that's how I also got Frank the Pug. And so when I was always a shy kid, and I always played around with voices, and so this just gives me an opportunity to go in and play and not be seen. Not like these on-camera people. I like to be either under or behind or on the side.
Wow. Thank you. And finally, at this end of the panel is my good friend Fred Tatasciore. Now, Fred, I have worked with quite a bit. Fred, if you are familiar with Space Mountain, Fred is the voice that tells you to keep your arms, legs, hands, and feet.
Welcome back, space travelers. 10, 9, 8, 7, 7. Seven.
I'm not triggering that. That's really you. That's really you. He's also the Gungan in Star Tours.
Oh, yeah.
You are in big trouble now. Yes.
Yeah. And when we announced Star Tours at the 29 D23, he did Darth Vader at the announcement. Did anyone remember that?
They call me Tin Can Vader. I'm the third struck Vader, yes. It's good to see you all here at D23.
Yeah. But one thing that Fred, when I need a scary monster, scary monster. I go to Fred immediately, and I want to show you, and I hope that this triggers right, but I want to show you, I'm going to play you what Fred did, what he recorded. Okay, you're going to hear this. This is the recording that we did in the booth. Okay, hang on one second. The character. Is it done? Okay.
I just want to be loved. Why is that so hard?
Now this is how it sounds in the. This is for Expedition Everest at Walt Disney World's Animal Kingdom. Here's what it sounds like in the field.
Awesome.
It's real. And it's all Fred.
He's pretty.
Thank you. Fred, now that we've gotten involved with Marvel, I can talk to you about one of the characters you do for Marvel is
Hulk. That's right.
Fred is the voice of the Hulk.
Thank you.
So I have to ask you, how did you end up becoming the Hulk?
I don't know. Why you ask so many questions?
That was just one.
Oh, sorry. I was told there wouldn't be math. I used to be a biologist.
Well, no, I've been so blessed to walk in those green feet for the last 8 years, and it started with some video games, and then it was the Hulk Versus series, where he was a savage beast, and then onto one Avengers series, where then he was sort of the reluctant hero, and then now we're on to Avengers Assemble, and that's on right now, and it's he's happy to be part of the team, and he's hanging out at Tony Stark's tower. And then we have a new show called Hulk and the Agents of Smash, and that's coming up, and that's where Hulk has kind of evolved further down the evolutionary scale, and he's actually trying to be peaceful, and he can speak in complete sentences. He's trying to move along like the comics, and so that's just how I got into it was pretty much just the regular getting into the audition and just trying to throw at it. I've been I was so into that character growing up, watching the Bill Bixby series, Lou Ferrigno, and also obviously the cartoons voiced by Ed Cassidy.
How did you find out you could do that kind of voice? I mean, that whole scary thing, because you did, when we were doing the Yeti, we were in the booth for a long time.
Yes, we were. It's just like playing an instrument. You just sort of practice, and you sort of realize, oh, I can open up this part of my throat and project out and connect to whatever the creature is, or in Hulk's case, the humanity of the character, still being a scary monster, but what is he underneath? So it's a really fun, as a voice actor, it's a really fun place to play, because you get to play with sort of opposites, you know?
Right. And now, so right now you're going to be in planes, I believe, right?
Yes.
Yes.
I play just a myriad of characters in planes, here and there. I play some Zen monks. Yes, that is the question you must hear, yes. And some of the guys, like my soldier type guys, are gonna land you on the aircraft carrier. And a couple of really whoa dude, wow, what's happening type guys, yeah.
And would you do me could you do me a favor? Would you do your Morgan Freeman for me?
Oh no, it's all right. It's good to be here at D23. Andy Dufresne watched all the way with those penguins. I knew exactly where he was going. It's nice to be here. I think that our killer knows that death is the #1 killer.
Okay, I just want to go. we don't have a lot of time, but I want to go and just talk to you. I'm just starting with you, Phil. How did you get your start in voiceover? I mean, I know you started with the fire sign, but when you transitioned to becoming basically what you are today, which is a phenomenon, how did that start?
Well, when I was a baby in Goshen, Indiana, this is where it started. My grandparents realized they were singing a lullaby to me, and I hummed it back. And it was then that we all realized I had inherited a particular ability to hear and repeat music. All of my family can sing and harmonize, and I was born with that wonderful gift. And so I used to mimic comedians that I liked. Bob and Ray were two of the ones I loved, and Ernie Kovacs, and I used to record things on my own just at home. And it was through Firesign Theater, when we were doing so many different voices on our records, that I realized I should probably do this commercially. And I went out like everybody else did and looked for an agent. And I had, a lot of voices they could listen to from Firesign. And I signed, and now I've been with CESD for almost 2 decades. And they're just a wonderful, wonderful agency. Some of our agents, Pat and Kathy, are out in the audience right now. And they work so hard for us to give us opportunities to audition for things and to use our talents. And that's really, how it continues along. I mean, I turned 73 last Sunday, and I'm still doing it.
It's the fire sound.
Candi, how did you get your start?
I really was Steven Spielberg on Tiny Toon Adventures. I had auditioned. I was getting ready to quit the business, so I had shown up to the audition in a ball gown and army boots because I was done, and I didn't have any material, so they said, you just tell, I did a children's story, so I just did the 3 little pigs, and I made them suicidal, and the wolf was kosher, and I just made it up and did all these little voices, and I walked out, and this guy in a baseball cap in the back grabbed my arm and said, you should do this. And I thought, oh my God, you look just like Steven Spielberg. That's so weird. And then I realized, oh my God, and I thought I should listen to the guy who made E.T. And I did, but like Phil, I was in the original company of Dreamgirls, and an all-African-American musical, and Michael Bennett, the late Michael Bennett, used to grab me and go, okay, now sing like her, and sing like her. And I think that the ability to mimic, and I think thinking fast, it was kind of a natural, but it began in singing and then transitioned through, all right, I'll go on this cartoon audition. And I really felt like I found home. Really neat people, complete actors, not needing to worry about face. And I will tell you, Phil is 73, I am a female, way over 23. And I am still working, and it's one of the last bastions of show business where what I look like means nothing, makes no difference, and what thank you, so do you. That's so sweet. Yes, thank you.
Alan, what about you? Mike him.
Hallelujah.
I'll take both. Stereo. I was very fortunate to have a fantastic agent who is my agent today, Pat Grady, and sent me out, got me some fantastic on-camera commercials. And one day I had an audition for something where I don't even remember the audition. I have no recollection of it. I walked into Margarita Mix, which is a sound recording studio, in a haze, walked into the booth, and there was Eddie Deason and Mitzi McCall and Dan Castellaneta, who's the voice of Homer Simpson, and I thought, what am I doing here? And for 3 hours I went, but you were near the tree! And that's all I did for 3 hours. And it was a fantastic time. We had a blast in the booth, and I just kept doing that with very little variation, because I was new. And it paid really well, and it was a great gig, and I just loved that. That was my first gig, and I love every minute that I'm in the booth. It's really, you can't explain well, at least I can't, what a treat it is to work with some of the people that you get to work with if you are fortunate enough to do this in the booth, which is very different than being on set where there's a lot of pressure and a lot of Michigan, some stuff going on. Yeah, you get to be in the booth with Fred or Phil or Candi or any of the people that do this for a living. And it's fun, it's playtime, it's a blast. You can just keep trying new things. And then they say, oh, let's take that little snippet right there and put that in, and that's a day's work. It's fantastic.
How did you get started?
I got started initially as a professional musician. I was playing tuba at Epcot when it first opened in the Maple Leaf Brass, and I did that for 5 years, and then transitioned to the music library. And during the time in the library, I had picked up a brand new book by this woman, Sue Blue, who we have all probably worked for at one point or another. And it was called Word of Mouth, and it was all about breaking into commercial and animation voiceover. And I was talking to my friend Dennis Moore, who was the morning classical host on the public radio station in town. And we were having dinner, and I was telling him about the book, and he said, well, we should go to the studio one night and put your demo together. So I put copy together, he directed me, and this was back in the day of 10-inch reel-to-reel, and the man was a surgeon with the precision that was just unbelievable, and the speed of being able to edit everything and dropping music beds from CDs on this stuff. And I started chopping a 2.5-minute tape around town in Orlando. It's a non-union town. I mean, you can be in the union, but you get a lot more work being non-union, and I wasn't in that union at the time. So I started getting work off of it almost immediately, and there was a guy, Bob Barnes, who kind of took me under his wing, and I started working almost non-stop. Every week I was doing another ad for the Orlando Sentinel as a different character. And my very first one for them was called Mr. Skeptical. And I just didn't believe anything that anybody was telling me. That's how I was Mr. Skeptical. And they brought him back a lot, but I did all kinds of stuff for them, and it was a great training ground. And from there, the agent I had in Orlando had a connection to Don Pitts here in Los Angeles, who was one of the stalwarts. He was under Charlie Stern, who had the very first voiceover agency. And Don, I came and played my tape for Don, or actually had planned on giving it to him, and he actually sat there with me next to him listening to it, and it was the scariest time of my life. And because he never laughed or giggled or anything, he just sat there and went, for 2.5 minutes, and then all of a sudden, I'm just going, oh God, he doesn't like it, I'm gonna have to go back to Orlando now. And he said, well, Bob, that was really great. Wide variety of characters, really classy stuff there. When are you moving to town? And that was the start of my Los Angeles voiceover career.
Wow, so fantastic. And Jim, just remind me, now how did you get started doing the puppets? I mean, how did that actually walk in the door?
I was studying fine art at UCLA.
Right.
And it, got to a point where I said, what am I gonna do with fine art? I don't know. I was considering transferring to Cal State Long Beach and becoming an illustrator, because they have a better program there. And I got a summer job with the puppet show, with doing puppets in Laguna Beach with Tony Urbano. And he heard me doing voices backstage and said, I'm gonna audition you for this commercial we're doing. And it was Muppet-style puppets for a bank in Arizona, local. I did kind of a Pat Buck from a mask kind of character, and ended up getting the part, and then he had work for the next 25 years. So
wow.
It's just kind of accidental being, playing with voices. I also blame Monty Python. I was in high school when they came out, and they told me to speak a British person. Just by listening and mimicking, it's key. It's kind of being able to listen and mimic back, and you just get to play with dolls and do voices. What more do you want?
That's what it's about. Fred, finally, tell us how you got your start.
Well,
30 seconds or less.
Oh, 30 seconds, do the quick version. The little kid went to the haunted mansion, heard Paul Frees go, welcome, foolish mortals. And I was hooked ever since. I started making tapes, recording. That turned me into stand-up comedy. That got me into improv. That got me into theater and doing some music. And I was an animator all along, so I was doing voices for other people's films. That, like Bob, got me to Don Pitts. Pat Brady then forged me into who I am as a voice actor and brought me to CESD, where Kathy Lizio actually keeps me alive. And that's it.
That's it.
How's that for Pat?
We're gonna have to wrap it up. It was wonderful having you here. I'm glad you all showed up. Tell your friends what they missed, please. We're going to be going from here. We're going down to the talent roundup. We'll be there if you want to sign autographs, take pictures, ask more questions. We'll be there for about an hour, starting at 11:45. So thank you very much for joining us.